thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. And I also thank the people who came before me. It's an interesting thing to be a little bit of an invert of the people who have come. On one side, I will never be able to match the sheer beauty of a native speaking their language, but I also try to do something of my very own, which is a little different. But it's always nice to hear languages like Farsi and Croatian, which I can understand a little bit from the Russian I know, or some of the Turkish or Hindi I know, but still, it's interesting and to hear the lilts and cadences of those words as if they were their own thing, and to not understand it but to understand something else despite that is really beautiful for me. I am an Indian American author, polyglot, and traveler, as Jackie very astutely said. And I have chosen a life of travel because I wanted to create works that kind of move us away from a very national understanding of literature and art. And so I created different pieces of art, and I'm still in the process of creating art for that purpose. I have a book available here for signing. It's a novel. I would love it, even if you don't really want to get a copy. Please, if you at least would want to come and dialogue with me, that's totally fine. But I will be, after this, trying to sell and sign some copies. So please come say hello. I'll be somewhere over there. And even if you don't want one, you can. I love to meet people and talk to people. So that's also totally fine. And I'm also embarking on a giant global digital streaming novel called Hirar, which will take place in 365 different places in the world. It'll be constructed through a digital device that I'm constructing, kind of like a website where stories will be thrust into, different parts of the world at different periods of a decade. And I am still designing that. I'm hoping to start creating stories on that space in April. Again, I am totally open to meeting you all and talking about that privately. Or if you want to learn more about that, I can give you links to perhaps my newsletter or my different Twitter, Facebook, whatever pages. But here we're fundamentally learning about poetry. And while I define myself mostly as a novelist, I also happen to write poetry. I come to I come to poetry with a little bit of unpure intentions. I come a little bit to practice sometimes, to take languages I know pretty badly and to do something a little bit different with them. And so since today we are also doing a little bit of something live, I thought rather than just read, I will interweave a little bit of myself with my poetry and my poetry with myself. And so, like with all poets, we all have to begin somewhere. And with all humans, we so begin with birth. 1990. La soledad, la oscuridad, luz efímera, los gruñidos de mi madre, mano enguantadas y friolojeras. Y después el desambular, la desorientación, la vida. ¿Por qué el universo me dio la vida? Yo tosía mis palabras, pero dentro de mis ojos sentilaba esa misma pregunta. This means, in English, solitude, darkness, sudden light, a muzz groan, cold and engulfing hands. Afterwards, decontextualization, disorientation, life. Why was I given life? I could only cough out words, but in my eyes brimmed that question. In other words, I was born. I was given life, like all of us in this room, like 7 billion people on this planet. I was given life and I did not know why. None of us know why. We're just given life and we are chosen to live that life out. And as I lived that life out, I realized that being a person of South Asian origin in the US, being a queer person, was not necessarily the life that was preferable. That there were things that out of my control were meant to happen to me because I was a sort of life that people necessarily did not believe in or did not think were due the certain treatments that life ought to be given. And through those incidences from childhood, teenage years, adulthood, I developed a certain way of thinking, and I also developed a certain love for people who were different and people who also could share such similar experiences. And as I started to travel to Spain and picked up Spanish, obviously, I started to want to travel. And I went all over the world. I went to 134 countries now. I've been all over for the course of 9 years, and I've just nonstop traveled. And there are times that people from my family background just simply don't understand me because people from a South Indian background are usually not used to people being different. So I was in Tianjin, was a city in China, and I was getting pretty decent in Chinese at that point. I'd been there for a little bit over a year. And I started to imagine what it would mean to, I don't know, talk to some of my family members in that language. And I started to create poetry. 我的妈妈说：“你爱不爱我？”克伦娜说：“当然我爱你，但是我们不一样，我们想法不一样，我们性不一样，我们是不同的个体。我离开我家，并不因为我不爱你，我离开因为我在追寻，就是我想了解众人，我想发挥我的天赋，我要创作些我想电视曾经。”跟那时候看的正正是，基本上他们就换了世界，有时看的真的换了政治独错，而跟那时候就是换了着父母，因为在跟那时候看来，父母就是他的世界，虽然父母也是我的世界，但我的父母不是 Shivaji 和 Parvati，我的父母如同所有程序犯人，终会死亡，我也一样。但却我的创作用人不色，专用有枪。克伦娜再次说道：“我爱你，妈妈，谢谢你给我爱，给我特让是我真相。但是有合作不能很合，无论怎么就义，就这得到的这如果国有靠近其他树木的根，有效的树木也会消亡。” In English, my mother asks, "Do you not love me?" Kiran responds, "Of course I love you, but you and I are not the same. Our ideas on life are not the same. Our hearts are not the same. And so we do not exist as one. I left my home not because I don't love you. I left because I pursue knowledge. I want to understand humanity. I want to develop my talents. I want to take the earth in my hand and make it gold." Kiran speaks on. Ganesha and Karthik once had a contest. Shiva told him to circle the entire world. Karthik truly circled the world. Ganesha never merely circled his parents. For Ganesha, the world was his parents. My parents are also my world. But my parents are not Shiva and Parvati. My parents, like anyone else on this earth, will die, as will I. But my life is eternal. It will live on for the sake of us three. Kiran repeats, "I love my mother. Thank you for giving me love, for giving me the resources to grow. But oil and wine cannot mix. No matter how much a tree supports its branches, if the tree is too close to the roots of others, the younger tree perishes and dies." So that is maybe a little bit of a blunt way to talk to my mother. but, but the point is, thank you. But ultimately, we're all set on this path and we only aspire to do our best on it, whatever that path may happen to be. And so on that path, I've lived in so many countries. I've tried to write mostly fiction, but also in other languages and poetry. And ultimately, it's lonely, right? It's lonely to be always a foreigner. It's lonely to always be living alone. It's lonely to be a little different, partly because you are different, partly because you're surrounded by people who sometimes don't even speak your language, and to just have to deal with that. So, unfortunately, sometimes I feel lonely. ನಾನು ಒಬ್ನೇ ಏನು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಒಬ್ನೇ. ನಾನು ಒಬ್ನೇ ಆಗಿ ನನ್ನ ತಾಯಿಯ ಗರ್ಭದಿಂದ ಜನಿಸಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಒಬ್ನೇ ಆಗಿ ಜೀವನ, ಪ್ರಯಾಣ, ಸಾಹಸ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನುಭವಿಸಿದೆ. ನನ್ನ ನರಗಳು ಒಂದಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ದೇಹವನ್ನು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಿಸುವುದು. ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯ ಒಂದಾಗಿ ಬರೆಯುತ್ತದೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮನಸ್ಸು, ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯ ಒಂದಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ದೇಹದಲ್ಲಿ ಇವೆ. ಪ್ರತ್ಯೇಕ ಪರಮಾಣು ಸೇರಿಕೊಂಡು ಅಣುವಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಮೂಳೆ ಬೇರೆ ಮೂಳೆಗೆ ಜೋಡಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮಾಂಸಖಂಡ ನನ್ನ ಮೂಳೆಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಪದಗಳಾಗಿ ಹರಡುತ್ತವೆ. ಒಟ್ಟಾಗಿ ಒಂದಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಅಸ್ಥಿ ಪಂಜರದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ. ನನ್ನ ಹೃದಯ ನನ್ನ ದೇಹಕ್ಕೆ ರಕ್ತವನ್ನು ಹರಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ಪ್ರತ್ಯೇಕವಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ಅಂಶಗಳು ಚಲಿಸುತ್ತವೆ. ನನ್ನ ಶಿಸ್ವ ವಸ್ತವಾಗಿ ಆಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಒಂಟಿ ಇರುವುದು ಹೇಗೆ? ನಾನು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಮನುಷ್ಯ, ನಾನು ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಜೀವ, ನನ್ನ ಸ್ವಂತ ವಿಶ್ವ, ನಾನು ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ. So in other words, I will have to, this is actually a poem I did not actually translate, so I'll have to do it off the top of my head. I'm alone. What can be done? I'm alone. I came out of my mother's womb alone. I have traveled, I've experienced things all alone. My nerves connect all throughout my body and control it all alone. And my heart also beats alone. But my heart, my mind are inside of my body. And each and every atom is coming together to form a molecule. And in that way, my bones are connecting to each other's bones, to each bone. The muscles on top of those bones as well, creating layers. It becomes a cage. And in that is my heart. And that is also causing my body to move and beat. And those are all the parts that make me. So I'm a full body. I'm a full human. I'm my own world. I am a real being. So therefore, how is it possible that I'm alone? That's a poem. And so it is with all this time being around the world, dealing with things, having to encounter humans that are not like me, having to find sense of it all, having to make sense of humans that are also not like me and are very different from me, particularly living in Australia, where I'm very obviously not an Australian. It's a part of life as well to kind of realize that we are all very different, but to somehow make peace with it. And so I've been recently, as in 5 months ago, I started writing a little bit of language I know also very badly, Turkish. And I just started to imagine all the different homes I've lived in. I've lived all over the world, and I've created a little bit of a sense of myself in each of these different places. And so I just wanted to share something I think short and sweet and kind of what I think is a good thing to end on as well. And it is ironically in not India, not the US that I reflect on, but in Russia, a country that I spent only 5 months in, but feel like talking about a little bit. Russia, sevgiyle konuştuğumuzda, cemniyetle evrene dokunmamızda, cesaretle kendimi ayaklarımız durduğumuzda, buz gibi tüm acı eriyor. That means the harshness of the world melts with ice when we stand upon our 2 feet, stare out into the flitted edges of the universe, and speak out love. Thank you. Yes, yes, that's it. And I'll also be up. I'll be somewhere now. I don't know where I'll sit, but I'll go somewhere, and you can find me in that location.
Do you reckon you've got one more?
All right. Oh,
I don't know. I reckon that felt like a short 20 minutes.
Right.
So
that's sweet of you. I mean, I was very purposely
I
trying
reckon
to.
if you've got another favorite that you'd like to share, that
sure,
would be
why
wonderful.
Not?
Thank
I was
you,
specifically
Kiran.
trying to curate that to have the most maximum effect, however. So.
I mean, well, I don't want to spoil your effect because it was wonderful, which is why we're left wanting more.
That's fair. It's up to you. I don't mind. Let me find something though. I do have extra poems though.
We can be a demanding audience.
Good. I like demanding people. I'm a demanding person myself, as most people who know me know. So. I'll do a Spanish one also because I just happen to very easily have one right in front of me. So also let me explain. So in Spanish, I wrote a collection of poetry in which I kind of described all the incidences of my life in one short poem from 1990 to 2019. And it was published in 2019. So 2020 did not make the cut, sadly. So it was 29 poems for 29 years of life. And this was one of my last poems in that collection. Vivimos en una época en que la mayoría de la gente quiere ser otra persona. Un chino quiere ser un estadounidense. Un estadounidense quiere ser un sueco. Un sueco quiere ser un brasileño. Y un brasileño quiere ser un japonés. Yo quiero ser 1,000,000 de espadas infiltrando el sol. Yo quiero ser una concha con la velocidad de sonido, llegando a la portada de marzo. Yo quiero ser el hijo de Venus, la madre de Bhima, un beso a la Shakti, un abrazo al Dios. Mi sangre indiana, mi nacionalidad gringa, las alas de la nube, la pistola de un flor. In other words, we live in an age during which most of the time we want to be something else. A Chinese person wants to become an American wants to be a Swede wants to become a Brazilian wants to be Japanese. I just want to be 1,000,000 little swords with the potential to pierce the sun, or a conch with the velocity of sound to make the first step to Mars, or the son of Venus, mother of Bhima, a kiss to Shakti, a hug to God, Indian blood, American passport, the wings of a cloud, the pistol of a flower.
Thank you so much, Kiran. That was fantastic. I actually think that was the perfect one to finish
on. Oh, no. Okay, good.
Please join me again in a big round of appreciative applause for Kiran Bhat.
Everyone, please.
Yeah, as a traveler, you definitely know how to take us all on a journey. And I'm starting to think like a night like this is the best substitute for actual travel in the world. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll just get you to grab, no, down in there. And sorry, and if you can get you to wipe the mic. Yeah, well, I just, say thank you again for how fantastic that was. Yes, if you just give the microphone and the grip and so on a little bit of a wipe, that'd be great. Yes, so your friends at Belonging Mag asked me to give you a shout out as well. They recently published one of Kiran's poems, which we shared. Right, I see. Well, the one that they published was excellent, and I know a lot of us enjoyed reading it. So yes, they send their congratulations and best wishes. And yes, We of the Forsaken World, Kiran's very happy to chat to people. He has copies of his novel for sale. And thank you again, Kiran, for coming all the way from Melbourne to join us and share your wonderful words. So I think after that, we're going to just take a little breath. We're going to have a 5-minute break. So those of you who are here at Smith's have got a moment for a bathroom break to go and introduce yourself to Kiran and again to sign a book for you, to top up your drinks at the bar or grab a snack, or just to say hello to the person next to you, especially if it's someone that you don't know. You at home on Zoom can do whatever your domestic equivalent to any of those things is. And we'll be back with you in about 5 minutes for another suite of amazing readings from the readers who are joining us over Zoom. Thanks, everybody. Back soon.